Let me see if I can, let me create an analogy to help you kind of see what it felt like for me and I think for our studio. Imagine you're in a car and you're going down the road and there's a car in front of you, and we're talking about Duke Nukem Forever, so let's make it a kind of a sexy car. Let's pretend it's like a Lamborghini or something, or Ferrari, like it's hot, right? And as you're driving down the road, it gets out of control and it starts spinning and flipping and it smashes into the wall and there's fire and people are screaming and there's blood and it's just like the most horrible freaking accident you could possibly imagine. And you just happen to be behind this car when that happened. You know, what would you do? You know, some people might keep driving and just, you know, let professionals handle it. Some folks might stop and try to help. But it's a little more than that. I'm not sure what I would do in that situation. Imagine that situation, but imagine that the people in that car that crashed, imagine those are people you care about. Right? I mean, remember, Duke was part of my legacy. It's where I got my start. So, you know, imagine it's like your brother or a friend from school or your first boss. Well, maybe not your first boss, but, but somebody you care about, right? And then imagine another thing. Imagine you driving your car. Imagine you're a doctor and you know something about saving lives. And imagine you're not alone, that in your car are lots of other people and they all are like surgeons and, you know, guys that are experts at emergency medicine and they know what's going on there. And imagine you're not in a car at all, you're in an ambulance and you have all the tools and equipment necessary for responding to this exact kind of situation. And also imagine you're not on the highway, you're not in the city, you're out in the middle of the desert. And if you kept driving, nobody else was going to come. That's kind of the situation we felt that we were in. Kind of where we saw ourselves. So, to deal with that, what we had to do is we had to put ourselves right in the middle. And I talked to George and Scott about it, and you know, we kind of figured out that we had to deal with the lawsuits, and we had to put a plan together where this game could actually be developed and ship, which means we'd have to take an investment, make a big risk, you know, and so. They sold Duke Nukem to me. I bought the brand, I bought the franchise Duke Nukem, and I bought the game Duke Nukem Forever. And that enabled my studio to commit itself and its resources and its money to build the game. It also enabled us to help kind of build a bridge between the developers and the publisher. Because 2K trusted us, we were working well with one another. So suddenly when I bought that, now I was the one being sued. And of course, it made it really easy for us to figure out a way to get those lawsuits out of the way and be constructive. I took this package after we built our plan and figured out how to make it work. I took this package to Christoph Hartmann, the president of 2K Games. And let me tell you, this guy, he's a great man. And on his desk, he has a simple desk, not many things. On his desk, for as long as I've known him, he's had a statue of Duke Nukem. This guy, he loves the brand. All he's wanted all these years is just to see a great game come out so that his customers can enjoy it. And of course, so he could profit from it, but ultimately though, he wanted to play it too. He plays games, he's a gamer, which is very rare in this business, let me tell you. And so what we were able to do was get ourselves right in the middle and take a bet and enable everybody to come together. Now there's one other, I don't want to spend too much more time talking, but there's one other really interesting point to this that I think is worth touching on. It's inspirational. When 3D Realms shut its doors and laid everybody off, you know, all these guys, they kind of scattered, they had to get jobs, you know, suddenly they found themselves unemployed. And so they scattered and got jobs throughout the industry. But there were some people that just couldn't give up, they couldn't let go. The team at that moment was about 30 people. And there was a handful of guys they just couldn't give up. One of the guys, a guy named Alan Blum, let me tell you about Alan. He and Todd Replogle in 1991, they're the guys that made Duke Nukem 1. They created Duke Nukem. They were best friends in Southern California, and they created this. Alan, from that moment, all the way through Duke Nukem 1, through Duke Nukem 2, then he moved to Texas, all the way through Duke Nukem 3D. He's always been a part of the team, all the way through Duke Nukem Forever, 12 years of his life committed to this game. And to this day, he's still working on the project. But when he was fired, he couldn't just get a job and go somewhere else. He could not do that. He couldn't give up. Even though he was the guy that created Duke Nukem was fired that day. He found himself unemployed. He couldn't give up. Really inspirational. He and 7 other guys, there were 8 of them, instead of going out and getting new jobs, they just hunkered down. They started working out of their apartments. You know, they were living off of ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese, anything to save money, because they had no income. But they just wanted to keep the dream alive. Now, it's crazy to think about what they did. When the 30 guys, before that studio shut down, the 30 guys, I would argue, were never enough to build and ship a AAA game. It takes a lot of power. Games are very complex these days. And then when that scattered and there was just 8 of them, they still kept the dream alive. And it's because of them that we're all playing this today. I mean, within them was all of the institutional knowledge of the development of that 12 years of development. They knew every asset, every line of code. It was all within them. And they kept the dream alive. It's because of them that I felt confident in taking the bet that I took. Because I knew that I didn't just want the title Duke Nukem Forever. What I wanted was to play the game that I'd been waiting on all this time. And this game that's happening, this game that we're playing, this is the vision of 3D Realms. This is their vision. This is their game. And that's what we're helping to finish. Today the team is over 70 people. It's over 70 people on the project. We've been working on it for over a year with the team. That team is now part of the studio. They're on our 10th floor. They're integrated with Gearbox, and they're the drivers of the project. So this game that we're playing, this is the thing we've been waiting for this whole time. And that's a really important component for me, and I think for all of us that have been waiting this long. So it's pretty wild stuff, man. I don't know if you've had a chance to play it yet, but it's a crazy story. They got smart a couple years ago and actually integrated their situation into the story. The game takes place 12 years after Duke 3D. And it's really clever how they set it up. I don't know if you guys have played the intro yet, but basically the game begins, Duke Nukem saved the world, so he's the most famous guy on the entire planet. He's also the wealthiest. He's successful at everything he does. He owns the biggest casino in Las Vegas and the biggest hotel, and his house is the penthouse of this casino. And he lives the most opulent, decadent, narcissistic, hedonistic life you can possibly imagine. And so here he is in this world, and the game begins, and you could play the beginning of it. It begins with him on his couch in his penthouse, 12 years after he saved the world, and he's finally playing his own video game. And he has the same opinion about it that we do. He's like, yeah, it's good, but fuck, it's been 12 years since I saved the world. Did it really have to take this long, for them to finish my video game? That's his attitude about it. So it's kind of interesting how they smartly incorporated that into the story. And of course, in this moment, in his world, this is when the aliens come back. And the aliens come back, and they're a big problem. Of course, the president thinks that the aliens have come in peace, and they begin trying to make a deal. See, the aliens are going to trick us. And Duke knows that it's just a trick, though. He knows what they're up to. And when they start stealing our chicks, when they start taking our women, this is when Duke has to step up. Their plan is to use our women to breed an alien army that's going to take over the world, but Duke sees right through this plan, and even if he has to be the only guy that sees it, and he has to save the world all by himself, he's going to get in there and he's going to do it. So this is Duke Nukem Forever. You're going to become Duke Nukem, and you're going to save the motherfucking world. And that's where we are.